Okay, Selva, we can start.
Yes, sir, can start.
Yeah. Good evening, fellow members. Welcome to this program on new opportunities in the capital market. To tell us more and more of opportunities available in the capital market. Today we have a renowned speaker and a present banker who is very specialized in investment analysis and equity research for more than 1.5 decades. Mr. C.A. Shailesh. Currently, he is a regional head of investment analytics with India's largest private sector bank. And prior to this, he was associated with international banks like DBS Bank and also with ICICI Bank. He has, in his career of 16 years in the capital market related activities, 8 years he has spent more into detailed equity research, and the last 8 years he is into wealth management advisory. Today he is with us to guide us more on various opportunities available for all the CAs to make their career or other opportunities of investment and various things in the capital market segment. Apart from CA, he is also a qualified company secretary. He is a financial risk manager with GAP USA, and he is also a person who has qualified 2 levels with CFA USA. For next 2 hours, he will be take us through the capital market opportunities, and I'm sure his eye-opener session will help us to explore and make our practice more enriched in this capital market segment. Shailesh Fatehpuri sir, now the floor is yours. You can take up.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh Kumar, for your kind words and good introduction. Very good evening to all the fellow colleagues who have joined today evening. I hope by the end of this call we'll have some more insights which we all carry back with ourselves. Greetings of the festivities to each one of you. I think we have just celebrated a lot of festivities across the country. So I have been given a detailed introduction. Mr. Suresh Kumar has been kind to talk about me. There's nothing much I would like to add about me or my background. I just to summarize, I have been into wealth management for almost 8 years now. I was with one of the largest banks in India in their Middle Eastern market for almost 4 years. So I've had that opportunity of working in Middle East or international markets as well for wealth management. I was into equity research for almost 8 years before I moved to wealth management because of my choice of doing something which I like more, which is wealth management. About the structuring of this session, how I would like to take it is, I would like each one of us to actually understand the opportunity which lies ahead of us for the next 1 to 3 decades in the capital markets, which is extremely important and is going to be the catalyst for all the opportunities which will come to us. I will spend some time on that. Next, I will talk about the different thoughts which come to each one of our minds as to what are the roles which we can play while participating in capital markets. And I will also want to talk about how fintechs are actually making a lot of difference to the way capital markets actually continue to behave. So with this very basic background of how I want to structure the call, I would straight move to my presentation. It's a detailed presentation talking about a lot of things. While the number of slides are limited, the information captured is adequate for us to understand what exactly the opportunity is in front of us. Happy to take any questions. Please feel free to raise your hands or send it in the chat box. I will get a flash on my screen. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And of course, we'll open the session for question and answers towards the end of the call. With that, let me put the screen up. So you can see opportunities for young members in capital markets. And I believe it's extremely vast an opportunity which exists. I've been a beneficiary of it over the last 1.5 decades. I think the next 1.5 decades or 2.5 decades is much more than what we have witnessed in the last 1.5 decades. So what's the story so far? I think capital markets exist because the concept of savings exists. So how did the origin of savings happen? Where are we presently? What's the current status? And what is the way forward? So we have all read in our initial curriculums the concept of exchange of value, which dates back to thousands of years. People used to barter a lot of things. And you can see in the picture which is there on the top left, vis-a-vis goods, people would actually exchange items which they would need for the items which they had. And since the introduction of fiat currencies, I think all assets, physical and financial, suddenly started getting valued in currency terms. So currency started playing a very big role in savings. People started saving in currency which was denominated in their local markets in their own ways. So the standardization of denomination happened regionally for each and every country or region. Where are we currently? Over the last few centuries, what has happened is people have saved a lot. For the simplicity of understanding, and mutual funds being the most common way of investing into markets across the world, what I tried doing is I tried summarizing what is the mutual fund AUM as a percentage of GDP across different markets, which are developed markets, and where do we stand currently. So it's a very interesting number which actually comes out. The United States has mutual funds AUM which is 103% of their GDP, whereas India only stands at 11%. In between are different parts of the world which are significantly present. So Canada and Brazil are closer to 65%. The UK is closer to 60%, which is 59% to be precise, and the world average is 55, whereas we are only 11%. So which means the opportunity is anywhere between 5x and 10x from here. Now that's the status in which we stand today. Traditionally, how has India been saving? I think that's a very important question which people must introspect and try to understand what the opportunity for financial markets is. So generally, the people in India used to save into physical assets. So gold, I think each household has it. Real estate is something which everybody wants to own, and definitely one should own at least one property for their accommodation purposes. And there are traditional financial instruments like deposits from government schemes and banks which people used to invest in. So the real financialization of savings in India has actually just begun. And what can be the catalysts of actually the financialization of savings? I think two very simple points are the interest rates in the world are very low, and it is expected to continue until something really unexpected, which is extremely high unexpected inflation or monetary tightening, becomes the last resort for the central bankers. Till then, a lot of money is going to move into financial markets. And to gain pace, low interest rates leave no opportunity with investors but to invest in financial markets to generate returns. So of course, while it comes with some amount of risk, what we are actually looking forward to is a lot of investments happening into financial markets. What is the opportunity from the shift? The quantum. I spoke about the opportunity which exists from the migration of traditional assets to financial assets. Now, what is the quantum of opportunity? So the history of mutual funds is not too old in India. It's almost kind of a 50-year-old story which is there. And the first scheme was launched by UTI as a joint initiative of Government of India and RBI. And the market size in 1988 was only 6,700 crores. And now we stand upwards of 30 lakhs crores of assets under management. So if you see over the last 7 years, the growth has been almost 4x for the asset under management in the mutual fund industry. Similarly, if you see for deposits with banks, while the quantum is very big, actually the multiple is only 1.7 times, which clearly indicates that people are having more tendency to invest towards financial instruments as compared to deposits. So is it going to be a catalyst for the industry to grow significantly? Of course, the answer is yes. What is the potential of Indian markets? Again, in some pictorial references, so with 130 crore plus population, today actually the mutual fund investors with unique PAN are closer to that 2.2 crore numbers. So without going into the exact number, the idea here to showcase is only 2% of the current population actually invests into even mutual funds, which is a very plain vanilla opportunity to invest in financial markets. Portfolio management services, alternate investment funds, private equities, real estate funds are still much beyond the scope of most of the investors still investing into Indian markets. So you can see the entire table and how it drills down to a very small number for mutual fund investors. So the expansion pace can be extremely high, and there's a big opportunity which lies in the smaller cities or tier 2 cities, which in mutual fund parlance are referred to as B30 cities. So below the top 30 cities is where a lot of savings is happening, and that can be a really big catalyst for the growth in the financial services, mutual funds, and the industry altogether. Coming to what can be the number where we can look forward to today, as I said, the aggregate number of investors is closer to 2 crores. The middle class number itself, which gradually invests into the markets and is becoming educated and moving towards financial instruments, is closer to 5.6 crore families. So can we really look forward to a very big jump? The 3x potential of this industry actually is really in front of us. I think chartered accountants can play an extremely good role when it comes to planning of investments. When I say planning, of course, planning can be goal-based planning, planning can be tax-efficient planning, or planning could be anything which takes care of the need of the investors. So, for example, in a fixed income category, and the reason I specifically chose about it is because rates in the country are gradually going down and down. A lot of opportunities exist to reduce the tax burden on the investor from the income which the investor wants to generate. So systematic withdrawal plans, for example, is a very simple way of creating a lot of good cash flows for investors who need it, vis-a-vis any other mode which is riskier. So putting in money for some times and then gradually pulling it out. You can see putting in something into the container and then it starts giving the water to you at the right time after 3 years is a way of looking into financial markets. So with a very brief summary on what financial markets actually offer to us, I'll straightforward come to what each one of us think and what I used to think, a decade and a half ago as to what should I be doing in my career. And a lot of young budding chartered accountants looking forward to an opportunity in the financial markets would be looking forward to today. So what are the opportunities? I have just tried summarizing a few of them in front of you, and 7 most relevant and most relevant and most promising opportunities actually exist into these 7 categories. So fund management, equity and fixed income research, investment banking, wealth management advisory or sales, treasury management, life and general insurers both, and financial planning. These are the pockets where actually a lot of opportunities exist for each and every individual. So while I will of course want to move to this segment and try to touch each one of them, and I've been fortunately on the part of some of them, I would be happy to have any questions if anybody has until now, whatever we have covered. And please feel free to raise your hands or flash it on the screen. I'll be happy to take up any questions that actually come up. Let's talk about fund management to begin with. So what is fund management? Managing the fund of somebody in a fiduciary capacity when you have been trusted with a specific objective or mandate given to you is fund management. Let's get into a bit of details of fund management. I'll try to spend 5 to 7 minutes each one of these topics for everybody to understand better. So very common fund management concept which we all actually know is that of a fund manager of a mutual fund. So there are so many big personalities from the financial services industry who are on and off television every day on the business news channels trying to talk about what they look forward to in the market, what are the expectations from the market. That is precisely what fund management is. A very vast industry exists for fund management from the mutual fund industry, from the portfolio management services, and from the alternate investment funds, which people actually look forward to. When I, of course, talk about alternate investment funds, it includes the private equity funds and the real estate funds, which also form the part of alternate investments. What is the job role of a fund manager? The fund manager launches a fund with a specific objective, with certain set of investors who are the target investors into such fund, with a clear mandate of what the fund manager is going to do with it. Let's say there's a fund manager who manages an equity mutual fund. I'll just take a very simple example of equity mutual fund. What would a fund manager do with equity mutual fund? If Mr. X were to give a lakh of rupees to a fund manager, Mr. A, to invest into the equity fund which he manages, the fund manager would fundamentally believe that looking at the asset allocation of the investor, the risk profile of the investor or his advisor has chosen to invest this amount of money into equity mutual funds. The objective here is to generate alpha for the fund, which is return over the benchmark. So very simply, the fund manager will, over a period of time, which could be as less as 1 day or as high as a month, invest the fund into equity markets. He will make the selection of the opportunity which exists in the form of shares by either doing a top-down research or a bottom-up research. Most of the fund managers actually conduct both type of work. At the asset management company level, they have a strategy, which is a top-down strategy. At the fund level, while they continue to follow the top-down strategy, they look into each and every company which they are invested in, which also results in a bottom-up approach for them. This is largely what the mandate for any fund manager is. He tries to figure out the companies as per the policy of the asset management company and the mandate of the fund. It is one of the most lucrative opportunities which exists for any individual practicing chartered accountancy, studying chartered accountancy and not practicing it. So in the service sector, fund manager is one of the most lucrative opportunities which actually exist. How easy or difficult it is to get into fund management, I think the answer is not clear, but the opportunity doesn't come on the very first day. It actually comes with a lot of years of experience, which can be 15 years, 20 years of experience. What experience is required for them? I think the most prominent experience which is required for them is being talked about in the next topic, which is equity or fixed income research. So initially, most of the participants who become fund managers actually start their career with research opportunities, which can be into broking houses, being a sell-side analyst, or PMSs and AIFs, being a buy-side analyst. So what is the difference between a sell-side analyst and a buy-side analyst? The buy-side analyst generally research stocks and makes recommendation to the own investment team, where the fund manager, the CIO, or the investment committee actually makes choices by the opportunity which has been searched or looked after through the equity research or the fixed income research analyst. So research for a decade and a half is kind of a prerequisite for fund management. It gives the fund manager a holistic approach of different sectors, the movement in economies, the impact of crude prices, foreign currency movement, geopolitical tensions, all becoming a part of investment strategy. Equity research is something I think most of us fancy when we initially start our understanding of financial markets. Fixed income research is a very, very vast subject. Global interest rate policies, global central bank policies, domestic interest rate policies, domestic central bank policies, currency fluctuations, the impact of these parameters on the currency, commodity prices which actually impact the inflation in the economy, understanding the expected, unexpected inflation. Everything comes together for a fixed income research analyst to understand what the fixed income opportunity is. So fund managers can be of both types: equity fund managers, fixed income fund managers, or fund managers who manage hybrid funds, where equity, fixed income, gold, and even real estate or financial underlyings of real estates become actually a part of the investment strategy. So the reason I spoke about equity research and fixed income research is this is the most vast area where most of the opportunities actually exist. So in fixed income research, the credit quality of the underlying paper, the maturity of the paper, the average holding period which the fund can have given the fund mandate, the modified duration which the fund can have, all these things are taken into consideration. The fund manager tries to adhere to a policy. Again, the investment committee at the asset management company level decides what their view on interest rate domestically and internationally are, what their views on inflation domestically and internationally are, and basis that they decide what are the papers they are looking at, what are the credit quality of papers they are looking at, what is the maturity of the papers they are looking at. Basis that in each of the fund, as per the mandate of the fund, the opportunities of the underlying papers are selected and invested. So equity research or fixed income research actually becomes the catalyst for fund management. These are the two extremely lucrative opportunities which most chartered accountants or finance professionals actually aspire for in capital markets. I'll move to some other linked opportunities which come through this. So wealth management advisory or sales, which honestly I am doing in my present juncture. So I was an equity research analyst in the past, and then I moved to wealth management. So what I do in wealth management today is interacting with a lot of investors, trying to understand what their risk profile is, trying to understand what products are suitable for them, what are their goals which they want to invest in, and then offering suitable opportunities from the bouquet of investment opportunities which are available. So wealth management advisory or sales is also a very, very skilled job where a lot of expertise is required in terms of understanding the tax impact of each of the investment which the investor is making, the succession planning impact which happens for each of the investor when he invests into something, the structuring of the investment, which means whether a person should have cash flows coming to him on a regular basis which can be more tax efficient, or whether someone should defer the cash flows to make the cash flows more tax efficient for investors, is also what forms a part of wealth management advisory and sales. This category has evolved significantly over the last 8-10 years. I think it's important to highlight that beginning of 2013, SEBI, the regulator for financial markets, actually started rolling out regulations which were in the favor of advisory business. And so now the wealth management business across the country is known by known in two ways. One is the advisory business, which is the distribution business, where you offer products to the investors who want to invest into different opportunities which exist. So while not getting into the details of that, what I'm trying to say is wealth management has a significant scope because Indians on a regular basis are creating a lot of wealth for themselves. Year on year, we see more number of unicorns coming into play, making big mark in the industry, which can be linked to digital opportunities or not linked to digital opportunities, but put together, wealth management actually creates a very big area for everybody to look into it. So when something is researched by an equity research analyst and the fund manager has a mandate to invest into it, how does an investor become aware of what are the opportunities available, where should one be investing, what suits his needs, his risk profile, his time horizon, his return expectations? Here comes the wealth manager who plays a role of making the risk and the rewards of the underlying products aware to the investor, make him aware of the opportunities which exist and help him take a decision of what is right or wrong for the investor. So to take an example, and a very common example for everybody's understanding, an investor with 75 years of age may not have a very good risk appetite for equity funds, or for that matter, small cap or mid cap equity funds. So while the fund management team may be doing a great job in figuring out very good mid caps or small caps and putting them in the fund, how does the investor get to decide or get to know that there are risks also which exist? That is exactly what the job of a wealth manager is. So wealth management advisory or sales is also a very big opportunity which exists for every individual in this industry. And mind you, I must say with a lot of confidence, I've been doing it for the last 8 years. If you like interacting with investors, if you enjoy talking to people, this is one role everybody should consider, because it comes with a lot of understanding, knowledge, and a lot of it actually brings in the attitude of behavioral finance, which we all try to study now for our better understanding of financial markets. So from that perspective, this is the next opportunity which comes up. Similar to wealth management, but a very broader version is financial planning. So what is financial planning? I think financial planning plays a very big role in the upcoming educated people who are getting into services now, jobs now, businesses now, practicing of profession now. They require financial planning because in the early stage of career, while your means are limited, your incomes are limited, your expenses are high, you actually have a very long life to live, and hence you want to plan for different events which you may see. So for example, a chartered accountancy professional who has just got into service or has started practicing may not have a lot of income which is coming to him or her immediately, but what the person would certainly look forward to is settling down in personal life through marriage, buying a home, retiring after the age of 60 if he's into job, retiring maybe at the age of 70 if he's into practicing because he wants to have a good life after that, buying a car, having a foreign trip every year in his life, buying expensive gadgets, anything, I mean anything, setting up something which is philanthropic in nature. So anything could be an aspiration for any individual, be it a chartered accountant in his early stage of career, or be it somebody else who is an engineering professional. So financial planning basically helps selecting the goals which are most important or should be prioritized when you are actually looking forward to making investments. And in the initial years, because the amount of corpus which is available is lesser, what one should look forward to is support from a financial planner who can actually help make the choice of two things. One, the right goals in the beginning of the career, and the right amounts to be invested to achieve that goal at the right point in time. So financial planning, while there are multiple courses I think available in the financial markets which people adhere to for doing financial planning, my belief is it comes to chartered accountants naturally because of their understanding again for the laws which exist in the country, for the tax regulations which exist in the country, for the understanding of financial markets which come to them, and also figuring out what is a good and appropriate opportunity because they have a good understanding of balance sheets as well. So financial planning actually comes along with this. So until now we have covered actually 4 out of the 7 opportunities. So I'll just repeat the sequence once again to summarize, and we'll move to next opportunities. So equity and fixed income research is the very crux where most of us want to start our careers. I also did an equity research, as I said. There we try to understand businesses, try to see the future of any institution which exists, whether the earnings which are being showcased today, the understanding of earnings which may happen over the next 5, 7, 10, 20 years. The potential of the growth of the industry is analyzed. Similarly, for fixed income research, the existence of the company for the next 20, 30 years is very, very important for anybody to lend money to them. This understanding of business is actually created at the equity or fixed income research level. Next comes fund management, which succeeds this, where not everybody gets an opportunity, but there are of course very successful equity and fixed income research analysts who have spent their entire lives into this. Fund management, because of course there can be only one fund manager for a fund, but there can be multiple analysts supporting the fund. The number of fund managers are less, but fund management requires a very good understanding of a lot of sectors, the overall economy, the macro picture, and then of course managing 1,000, 2,000 to 30,000 crores of funds which are being managed by a lot of professionals in India today. And of course the number is all set to grow higher. I think next comes is wealth management, sales and advisory, which I spoke about. So sales can be direct sales. I've seen a lot of successful chartered accountants into wealth management sales as well, who actually go to the investors, try to figure out what the opportunities are. Not everybody is comfortable with sales, so a lot of people get into advisory. They prefer advisory more over sales. I think these are complementing roles, and any one of them is, both of them in fact are very, very good opportunities for every individual. Financial planning is a broader way of looking at wealth management. Wealth management could be for people who are HNIs and ultra HNIs in the country. Financial planning could be for the mass affluent people who are now coming up the curve and joining the middle class or the upper middle class of the society. With a summary of this, I'll try to move to the next three opportunities. The next three opportunities are unique in their own ways. In fact, all the three of them. I think the floor has been open for questions, so happy to take any questions if they at all come in. Moving to the next piece which I was trying to talk about. Sorry. Yeah, okay. So investment banking, treasury management, and life and general insurance. What are the opportunities in this space? So investment banking, I think, is a very, very widely known term. A lot of people who are fan of investment banking actually look forward to a role in this. Is this a great role? Of course, the answer is yes. It is one of the most phenomenal opportunities which exist in the industry. What does an investment banker do? Let's take an example. Corporation A, Corporation B, they have their unique businesses, their own businesses which exist. They bring on table some very, very different expertise, which, if let's say a backward integration or a forward integration could be done for their businesses, could create a lot of value for the shareholders, for the company, for the stakeholders of the company. They try and bring such businesses together. They try to understand what are the synergies of the business, what would actually become progressive if these businesses come together, at what value will it accrue benefits to the shareholders, stakeholders, the promoters of the company, everybody. So vast understanding of every industry in which they function, vast understanding of macro, looking at opportunities which exist, is what an investment banker does before they bring two companies together to actually join hands in forming either a joint venture or getting merged with each other, or getting into projects in which they can bring in different skill sets which are being offered by a third party. So a company C actually looking forward for two different people to come together and do something for them is also what an investment banker is capable of doing. What does it require? It requires backing of very, very good institutions, for the very, very simple reason good institutions actually want to get involved into very big deals which are significant value creators across the industry. So from that perspective, if I really say investment banking is very, very interesting, understanding businesses, understanding industry, understanding economies, understanding who is looking forward to joint venture, having very, very good connect in the market is what brings investment banking together. Definitely everybody who is aspiring to do very, very big deals should look forward to investment banking opportunities which exist in the market. The only difference between equity research, fund management, and investment banking is investment banking, the number of opportunities which exist are smaller, although a spectrum of opportunities is much bigger as compared to that of an equity analyst or fund management in most of the cases, I'll say. Certainly not all of the cases. In a lot of cases where the smaller investment banking deal happens, vis-a-vis a big equity research analyst opportunity or a fund management opportunity can even be better. So between the two, what should one choose? I think both have their own very, very good pedigrees which they hold in the market as opportunities. and looking at your own personal interest, one should make a choice of what makes more sense for any individual. But I would rate them at par with each other, to be very, very honest. That's largely about investment banking. I think I'm left with two more topics which I want to cover, and then we'll move to some more things as to what bring all these things together actually. Treasury management. I think treasury management is a very, very good opportunity when it comes to managing large sums of money on behalf of family offices or on behalf of large corporates which actually have a lot of surplus which they have generated by mostly internal accruals in their team. So what is treasury management? Again, to give an example, company A, which has, let's say, turnover of 1 lakh crores and generates a profit of 10,000 crores every year, actually only distributes 40% of that money, which is 4,000 crores as dividends, and retains 6,000 crores as the surplus within the company. Since they don't have any immediate plans of expansion or something, this money remains invested into different investment opportunities as per the charter or the memorandum which the company has declared. How should they manage their own investments, or what is referred to as a treasury book. So this 6,000 crores of internal accrual and different amounts of similar nature every year, let's say, end up forming a corpus of 25,000 crores of treasury book for a listed corporate, let's say company A. So what does one do with this? Very simply, adhering to the mandate or the charter which has been defined by the company, selection of investment opportunities which are offered by different fund management teams or different wealth management outfits, and making selection of that is what is treasury management. Let me take an example to talk about it better. Company A has a treasury book of 25,000 crores. They want to invest this money into different fixed income instruments because they are very wary of equity market risk. So they reach out to 3 different wealth management entities, let's say wealth management entity X, Y, and Z, and say, please bring across different opportunities which can be considered for investing our money. Now, what could be opportunities for treasury on the fixed income side? Corporate deposits, corporate bonds, bank deposits, fixed income mutual funds. These could be the opportunities which exist actually for somebody to manage treasury. What would be efficient for them from the risk perspective and tax perspective both is what the job of the treasury management team is to figure out, and they are assisted by a lot of wealth managers on this side. So a company already generating a lot of surplus, if we're to invest into bank deposits or corporate bonds, the coupons or the interest from where remains taxable may not be the best of the choices unless the post-tax returns are higher. So a treasury team will always consider pre-tax as well as post-tax return. It becomes the job of the wealth management team to bring opportunities which are tax efficient in nature. So what the wealth management team does is they go back to the treasury management team saying opportunity A, B, C exists. So you can invest into corporate bonds, corporate deposits, or debt mutual funds. Debt mutual funds are more tax efficient if you have a holding period of 3 years plus. They are less tax efficient if you invest for a period of less than 3 years. Whereas when it comes to corporate deposits or taxable corporate bonds, since the interest is taxed at the nature of accrual or at the time they are paid out, you will have to pay taxes every year. They are not most tax efficient for you. So a treasury management team brings on the table the corpus which a company has. The wealth management advisory people actually bring in opportunities which can be considered for investment, which are tax efficient and risk efficient. Which opportunities they actually bring in? They bring in opportunities which come from the fund management houses. So mutual fund companies like ICICI Prudential, Canara Robeco, UTI, Nippon, Access, they all have opportunities which are in the nature of different fixed income funds, which can be corporate bond funds, banking and PSU debt funds, short-term funds, medium-term funds, long-term funds, credit risk funds, and the list goes on, floating rate funds. So which out of these funds is a better choice for the treasury management team is what the job of the wealth management advisory team is. Who brings in the opportunity to the fund management team to choose the proper underlyings? This is the fixed income research team. So as I said, most of these opportunities on the side are together linked. They're also linked to the treasury management business. So as a treasury manager or as the CIO of a big family office, your job is to figure out what is appropriate. Companies would generally prefer fixed income. Family offices may actually have a blend of equity and fixed income in different proportions, which can be something like an aggressive profile with 70% or a conservative profile with 30%. So treasury management again is a very, very important thing, requires extreme understanding of macro situations on the fixed income side, on the equity side, understanding of different asset management companies which bring in different opportunities, the quality of research they provide, the quality of research they use to select their underlying investments, the kind of returns they have the potential to generate. So this is on the treasury management opportunity which comes in. Well, life and general insurance, I'll tell you how it makes a difference in the entire opportunity. With such a huge population, and we are all still coming out of COVID times. Fortunately, these are better times as compared to what it was in March, April, May, that we are behind hopefully the second wave and not expecting a third wave. But the value of life and the value of money which is required to keep yourself cured if you are supposed to get infected with, unfortunately, a very, very severe disease like a COVID, what you need is a lot of medical insurance, for example. So life insurance and general insurance actually are great opportunities which form part of different financial planning needs in the initial stages of every investor. So understanding this is extremely important. You may not become a distributor, you may not become a participant of the life insurance actuary team, but still understanding what the suitability of the product is for each of the investor across the country who is looking forward to invest today and in future is a very, very good opportunity. Having a good understanding of the different life insurance products which exist, the different general insurance products which exist, which can be health insurance, car insurance, house insurance, medical insurance, anything which is there, gives a very, very good understanding as a financial planner or as a research analyst, because this actually brings in a lot on the table in terms of protection needs which all the businesses, individuals, and every participant in the economy for that matter has. So I think while there's not much with every individual does in the life insurance and general insurance side, but I think understanding this is extremely important, and the potential for somebody to do a lot in this category is again huge if somebody chooses specifically to go out actually and represent these entities in terms of understanding, because again taxation plays a very, very big role, particularly on the life insurance side for very, very big investors. And I think who better than chartered accountants bringing that forte on the table to make people understand the utility and efficiency which taxation can create as a difference for every entity. I think with this, I've tried covering all the 7 opportunities which exist into this category. And while I've covered how treasury management makes a difference, how treasury management is linked to wealth management advisory, how fund management and equity research complement each other, how they complement the needs of each and every entity, how financial planning plays a role, what investment banking does, let's understand why financial markets. So why should one invest? The benefits of investing actually take away any doubts which can be there in anybody's mind, whether this is a good opportunity or not. So a lot of people invest for tax planning. They fall in the highest marginal tax slab rates, which add up to, let's say, 42.74% to be precise. And hence, they want to plan their investments so that they are efficient with their planning and they pay lesser taxes unnecessarily wherever they can plan it better. Why do people invest otherwise? They invest for a lot of confidence and self-esteem. I have so many number of shares of company X. I've been an investor of company X from 25 years. This gives a lot of confidence and self-esteem to people. Better risk-adjusted returns. So what are risk-adjusted returns? For a probability of losing 8% in a year, would an investor want to generate a return of 4%, or would an investor want to generate a return of 12%? Of course, with the same risk which exists in taking away 8% of your capital, anybody would prefer 12 over 4. So better risk-adjusted returns. Now, this understanding is a very basic numerical understanding which comes from understanding finances better, the balance sheets better, because we build a knack of understanding numbers much, much better. Fulfillment of goals. I think each one of us, while we are talking on this session itself, the reason of understanding what are the opportunities on financial markets is to fulfill our own goals of a good, professional, successful career, which we all want to make for ourselves in the next 30-40 years we intend to work. So with that objective, I think every individual who comes either into a service or becomes a professional for practicing any profession which is associated with, or starts a business, everybody has goals which they want fulfilled, it to be fulfilled. And a lot of fulfillment of such goals can only happen through a lot of financial savings which are possible. Ability to handle unforeseen events. So a lot of us have seen the unprecedented COVID times which have taken away so many lives of people whom we have known, the near and dear ones. Unfortunately, all of us would have known somebody, be it a distant relative, a distant friend, a friend of a friend, unfortunately losing their life, job, income streams into during this last 18 months of COVID. So the ability to handle unforeseen events actually come from saving today. So something saved today actually becomes useful when you are into the bad days of your life, or the rainy days as they are called. And insurance, of course, takes care of anything which is absolutely unforeseen and very, very distressing, for the lack of any better word, I'll say. So ability to handle unforeseen events is why one wants to invest, and to build a secure retirement corpus, because a lot of people into jobs actually have a defined professional life which is up to 60 years of age. And even in the current world, I think certainly we must acknowledge that the new generation wants to spend a lot of time of their later half of life traveling across the world, doing things which they actually like, which can be anything, as I spoke in the beginning also. It could be nothing else but philanthropy. So a secure retirement corpus becomes extremely, extremely important for them. So for these different objectives, one invests. So when one invests, what does he look at? He looks at fixed income, he looks at gold, he looks at real estate, he looks at equity. Where are these instruments available for investing? Through different asset management companies when they're structured in the financial form. So where could you invest into equity? Equity mutual funds, PMSs, AIFs, direct equity as well. But all these have to come together. Since we are talking as professionals, what are the opportunities? Not everybody is an expert in selection of instruments. Not everybody understands direct equity well, and hence the opportunity of financial professionals like us to come and actually play a role of either an equity analyst or a wealth advisor or a fund manager, even anything which we choose to do for ourselves. So with these objectives, and I'll just go back to the previous slide once, all these actually roles can come and become a part of professional opportunities for everybody. Moving to one last slide, which I spoke about, understanding of these asset classes is extremely, extremely important for every individual, is what I believe. Being a chartered accountancy professional, a lot of us understand most of these things. But I think from the financial investments perspective, gaining understanding of one of them in details or with a very, very deep knowledge actually helps you look forward to a very, very good opportunity. If you develop a very good understanding of something, you become a specialist in that sector, which could be equity analyst, which could be the fund manager into that category. Having understanding of a few of them all together brings in lot many opportunities, which could be that of a financial planner, that of a wealth advisor, that of a fund manager. So let's say somebody who understands equities, does equity research, can easily become an equity fund manager. But somebody who understands equity, debt, gold, all of them, can certainly maybe become a fund manager of a fund which is a multi-asset fund. Similarly, for real estate, the role real estate plays in the financial markets with the financial instruments having real estate underlyings is also very, very important. I think REITs, InvITs play a very, very big role in the markets today and are an evolving category. They will have much bigger role to play in future. So understanding real estate is also very, very important here. And I think with all this, I've tried covering everything which was there. The last very, very important thing, which is the role of technology and the fintech players in the industry, is what everybody in the current aspiring stage should look forward to. So what's happened with the entities like Paytm, Aurowealth, InWealth? What have they done? What have they achieved in the last decade of their presence and growing presence, I'll say, is they have disrupted, and they've disrupted the traditional way of investing into financial instruments. Do we expect the disruption to continue? I think the answer is a clear yes. In fact, we should expect that now we will be in an era where a lot of these disruptors will see disruption by even more aggressive players coming in, because people have gradually realized that these opportunities actually become more cost efficient, more tech enabled, more fast in reaction, very handy, available at the click of a button. And so all these opportunities actually come as very, very big opportunities to each of the individual who is looking forward to a career in the financial market. So what could be the best opportunities? While everything I spoke about are great opportunities, I think the best of them comes to us in the form of fintech players who are financially extremely savvy, technically extremely savvy, or technologically extremely savvy, and integrate both of these to bring new opportunities to investor. So what's changed over the last decade? banks taking physical forms for onboarding customers by taking 3 to 6 signatures have now moved to a very different form of onboarding clients with Aadhaar based biometric verification, eliminating the papers completely. So no physical documents. This is what these players have brought into the table. User-friendly applications. I remember my early days when people used to sign mutual fund forms with 3 signatures on the form, attach a check with it, attach a PAN card with it. After all that, today to a world where we have the CVL KRAs doing our KYCs, storing them at the back end, any application integrated from the back end to that kind of has a waterfall effect for us on the front. We put our PAN number, our basic details get captured, we get integrated to the asset management companies, put the amount, select the name of the fund, select the plan, just click of the button, a SMS comes, the money is debited from your account and invested into the fund where you want to invest. So this is the way applications have become user friendly, and this is for everything you want to invest into: mutual funds, a national pension scheme, a ETF, even transfer money to a PPF account when it is with bank like a State Bank of India, which is a PSU bank, or even a ICICI bank for that matter. So execution is kind of in no time, which used to take 2-3 hours, 5 hours for every entity willing to invest a decade and a half ago, and a detailed portfolio tracking. So a mail comes to your email ID immediately upon your investment is made at the click of buttons on different platforms which are available digitally. You can see your current portfolio value, the value of your investment, the underlying papers in the investment, the last 1 year, 3 year, 5 year returns, the risk matrix of each and every investment which you're invested into. So digitally things have advanced significantly and it's brought in the ease, which also is going to be a very big catalyst for this industry to grow very significantly. So while everybody shows a lot of initial resistance with the technological platform which comes in, my experience over the last 1.5 decades is with every passing 5 years, the potential of the industry grows up by 5x or 6x just because something very beautiful was rolled out 5-6 years ago, which people at that era were finding very difficult to adopt to, which the new generation which comes in after 5 years finds it as the new normal, starts adopting to it very fast. A very good thing has happened. Initially, only the brokers had that opportunity of showcasing what their investors have with them in their portfolio. Today, there's this very beautiful concept of held away portfolios coming in. So broker A, broker B, broker C, direct plans, everything can be integrated on a platform which is being offered by distributors. All the advisors, your provident fund, your home loan, so your entire financial position can actually be integrated into different applications which are available, which is going to change things very big, in a very different fashion, big time over the next decade actually. And of course, we come to the last nail in the coffin which the industry could hit. Charges are being slashed. So for mutual funds, in fact, there are no charges to distributors. If somebody, an investor, has the capability of selecting investment opportunities, he can straightforward go to the asset management company's website, or there are so many other platforms which without any charges actually offer uh, investment opportunities to all the investors who come across. What's the business model? They're actually at present burning a lot of cash, trying to acquire customers, but we believe broking, and particularly I believe, I'll say broking, insurance, tax planning, these things, once they're offered to the investors at an integrated platform, actually brings the stickiness of the investor, and that's a great opportunity for every chartered accountant looking forward to join any entity or set up any entity, I'll say, which can be a disruptor in the financial planning space. So I think different things we have spoken about: how saving started, where we are currently today, what we look forward to, what are the opportunities for a chartered accountant, what is the pie which India has today as compared to the world in terms of financialization of savings, what are the career opportunities which each one of us can look forward to, and what's the thing which is not so prominent today but can become really significant after a decade or so, which is fintech players. I think with this, for a good 45-minute patient hearing to me, I thank each one of you, and I would request people to feel free and ask any questions which they have. I'll be happy to answer all the questions. Yeah, I think I can see some questions which are there on the screen. So the first question is, can a practicing chartered accountant get a registration with SEBI for equity research? meaning can we practice both CA as well as equity research? So if you want to practice equity research with any entity, you of course cannot be a practicing chartered accountant. As a practicing chartered accountant, certainly with your knowledge and understanding of businesses, you can get into equity research. For offering equity advisory services, I will have to come back to you. This part I have never explored, whether one can actually register with SEBI as both an equity research analyst as well as a practicing chartered accountant with the institute. So this is one question I'll take back with me. I will return back to you with all the details on this. How does one start at investment banking? Please guide as per your experience. Okay, that's a very interesting question. It's extremely simple to start at investment banking. A lot of banks keep on hiring interns in the beginning of their career who actually want to who actually can be associates to the investment bankers who are there as part of their team. So fresher chartered accountants do get opportunities with big banks which have investment banking teams and dedicated institutions which are investment bankers only. One should look for them, and while applying for jobs, one can apply for jobs with them. Upon selection, you can start your career in investment banking. Is it very easy to find opportunities? The answer is no, there are limited opportunities which exist. But is it absolutely impossible? Again, the answer is no, it is certainly possible to become a part of an investment banking team. If somebody searches for maybe a couple of months or so, one can certainly look forward to an opportunity in investment banking to begin with, maybe with the not the biggest of the institutions because they have very limited roles, but in some mid-sized institutions which are still significantly present as investment bankers, one can easily get an opportunity. Should an investment banking professional complete CFA, or we can use our CA itself for to specialize in this area? Any insights on increasing knowledge in this area? Okay, that's a very, very good question. I think CA itself suffices all the purposes to be present in the financial services industry. Having said that, I will not deny that any other professional qualification certainly adds more to your knowledge, which one may explore depending on the means available, the time available to any individual. If you're already working into investment banking, it will be extremely difficult to pursue CFA. I think I am one of those chartered accountants who has not been able to complete because of the lack of time. I am not able to give my level 3 properly ever. So if you want to do it, please allocate your time properly, then only do it, because CA itself is very, very sufficient to look forward to a career in that area. On increasing insights or knowledge of this area, I think it is extremely simple to do so. Reading a couple of business newspapers helps you understand businesses better, helps you understand the economy better, both domestically as well as internationally. With that information, being a part of an investment banking team helps. Most investment bankers actually focus on specific sectors. If somebody gets an opportunity into a specific sector, I would recommend the person to become an expert in understanding all the stages from the very beginning of a business to the end of a business for becoming a very good investment banker. What opportunities are there for freshers? Where do we find job offers? So a lot of opportunities are available for freshers in equity research in our country across the locations. It is very, very easily available. There are two kinds of opportunities which are available. Freshers can look for equity research or fixed income research into Indian markets, which are available with a lot of research entities stationed in India. One should certainly also consider a lot of opportunities which actually exist with MNCs, which are ideal subsidiaries of Moody's, S&P and all, which are more or better known as offshore entities rendering research to international players in US, UK. So what is generally referred to in a very layman term as back office is not really a back office all the time. A lot of very good quality work actually happens in a lot of such setups, which are the offices of international companies in India, largely present in markets like Pune, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, and they utilize your skills very, very significantly to do a lot of good work like the valuation of the funds, the valuation of the underlying investments of the fund. So one should consider such opportunities. Where are the opportunities available? On all the job portals, these opportunities are available across the country. Remember to be present with your profile and details of your profile and your interests into opportunities through professional social media platforms, and that can also help you in some opportunities through a lot of consultants who keep scouting for good candidates for such opportunities. Can one start this as a side hustle and still become a prominent in the field? And will this be useful in other countries as well? Okay. So anything which you start as a side hustle but you focus on something else will not get enough attention, because anybody who will look forward to you as a participant in their team would want to see you as a 100% dedicated player doing this all the time, and hence I would recommend not doing it as a side hustle and still expect to become prominent. Becoming expert is certainly possible with the amount of time you may wish to dedicate to any activity, even as a side hustle, but becoming prominent in the field professionally would be very, very difficult. Corporations would definitely want 100% dedication from each of the employees which they have. It has a lot of usefulness in other countries as well. I think understanding macro domestically and internationally really takes people places. I know a lot of my friends from my initial days of chartered accountancy who are now settled overseas with a lot of opportunities into different fields who started in India. So yes, it does help. Is it necessary to take registration with SEBI for advising clients regarding equity markets? Yes, it is necessary. The regulations very clearly say that anybody who wants to offer advisory to its clients must get registered with SEBI, and there are some prerequisites which are exams which one has to clear for SEBI to give one a license. It has to be applied in a very simple, in a very separate form. There are no exceptions to chartered accountants. The only advantage is because of your vast experience and understanding which you may bring on the table, for you to clear exams which are prerequisite for being registered as advisors may become easier for you. Apart from statutory audit of companies, what are the opportunities available for practicing chartered accountant in capital market activities like due diligence work for new investors? Can you list it to the best of your experience? Yeah, sure. So I think due diligence is again a very, very good area where one can look forward to. Well, while it is certainly a part of capital market, a lot of people actually don't immediately look forward to that opportunity in individual capacities, because smaller entities don't see significant integration which happens, whereas larger entities try to go for bigger names because they get a lot of confidence with the experience the participants or for that matter the partners or the employees of the entity actually bring on the table. So can I request for, yeah, thank you. So apart from statutory audit of companies, yes, certainly there are many more opportunities available for practicing chartered accountant in capital markets, with certainly one of them being due diligence. Due diligence for smaller companies for acquiring businesses or setting up new entities is definitely a role one wants to play. Honestly, the remuneration may not be as lucrative if you are trying to do it for new investors, because the kind of scale or the economies of scale they are looking at may not be significant for one to be rewarded significantly. But yes, there are opportunities available for due diligence. One should try and expose themselves to valuation of companies, valuation of businesses, due diligence of existing businesses which somebody wants to take over. I think it's a decade of experience which is going to bring in a lot of credibility with anybody's name on that side. But yes, along with statutory audit, somebody starts that. After a decade, one can definitely become a significant player in that field. What is the opportunity for a CA in treasury management? I think the opportunity is immense. Reason is, what does a treasury management require? Identifying good investment opportunities. What are good investment opportunities? Companies with healthy balance sheets, no default risks, growing businesses, generating regular cash flows. Understanding all these parameters is the easiest for a chartered accountant because of his educational background. So that's the first step of treasury management, be it equity, be it fixed income. This is what a treasury manager does. After generating returns, what is the objective of the treasury? The objective of the treasury is to generate high or maximum post-tax returns. So who understands better the concept of regular income vis-a-vis capital appreciation, the difference in taxation between which is accrual in nature or capital appreciation in nature? No one better than a chartered accountant. So the opportunity is huge. One should look forward to opportunities in treasury management being a chartered accountant. You may not be able to start as a CIO of the company, but being a deputy to the CIO or being a part of the treasury management team which identifies opportunities for treasury management exist for CAs. should we be good at statistics to be an expert in investment banking? Well, that helps, and that certainly helps because the people whom you compete with in investment banking definitely bring in that extra expertise of understanding statistics much better, because a lot of them actually come from engineering and MBA backgrounds. So engineering really brings that statistics understanding better for them. Do you need to do a separate course for understanding statistics better? I think maybe that is not what is required, but understanding statistics better certainly helps being a better professional and having a better opportunity in investment banking. So yes, one should explore understanding of statistics better. How would SEBI find out if an unregistered person has given advice? There are many giving it on social media. Okay, now that's a very interesting and unexpected question, to be very honest. SEBI would generally figure that out first when there is an investor who complains and showcases that somebody is giving an advice without being registered with SEBI. What is being given on social media, a lot of people actually very clearly disclaim that I am sharing my thoughts, I am sharing my experience, I am sharing my understanding. Don't take your investment decision basis this. Please consult your advisor. So they've been kind of disclaiming. Plus, social media advice is not a specific advice given to any individual. SEBI is more concerned about specific individual advices given to individual people, where unregistered person is certainly liable. So a complaint can be one of the biggest triggers for somebody to be figured out by SEBI as unregistered person giving advice. That's one of the ways, and there can be many more ways. Somebody advertising and SEBI figuring out from some source, somebody visiting different entities trying to figure out the source of income where people have been generating income from advice being reported in the income tax return could be a source for people to figure out that somebody is not registered as a person and is giving advice. So one should not explore that opportunity of giving advice through social media or giving advice as unless the person is registered. I think that certainly brings in limitations in the eyes of the regulator and breaches the law of the land, which one should never resort to. Is there any refresher course available on capital markets? Yeah, there are many refresher courses available in for capital markets. One can consider doing so many courses, which can be courses for as less as 4-5 days, which is distant in nature, to residential courses offered by different institutes, which can be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year programs as well. With a lot of detailed understanding. Of course, when we talk of refresher course, it is for a smaller period of time in the distance learning mode is what I'm assuming. What I would rather recommend is to better go through a lot of good business websites or news platforms which are linked to business news, which will give you a very good understanding of how the world is being looked at. If you only need to understand the ratios, the risk parameters which are considered, I think anyways a lot of information is available with the people. So you don't need to really go for a refresher course immediately unless it's been some time that you have not been into capital markets and you want to enter afresh. I think budding chartered accountants looking forward to capital market exposure are well equipped with the curriculum which they undergo to become participants in capital markets. Can a practicing CA registered as portfolio manager under SEBI regulations, is it permitted under CA Code of Ethics? So honestly, I'm not sure about whether it is permitted under CA Code of Ethics for somebody to register as a portfolio manager under SEBI regulations. There are predefined rules which an entity has to abide by before it becomes a portfolio management service offering entity and a portfolio manager. This is again a question I'll have to come back to you as per the Code of Ethics. How does it work actually? I've never explored that area. So I'll come back to you. I think I'll take the questions from the backend team, the 2 questions which I'm supposed to come back to. I'll be happy to write back the answers. Feel free to mention your name and email ID with the team, and I'll leave the responses back to you over an email. Can the opportunities suggested by you be done through remote locations? Yeah, I think this is exactly what has happened, which is the only blessing I think in disguise which COVID has brought in. A lot of these things can now be done with remote locations. So we still see a lot of hiring being done by big corporates where people have still not resumed offices or have not been moved to their work locations. So yes, these opportunities can be explored through remote locations. Having said that, it is extremely important to also note that the world cannot forever be work from home. We are anyways now in a hybrid model where some people are working from home partially and partially from offices. So while theoretically they are possible to be done from remote locations, anybody who's looking forward to these should make it very clear to the prospective employer that your intent is to work from remote location, because that is when a clear understanding between the employee and the employer will be created, and the employer, given the capabilities, may agree to allow somebody to operate from remote locations. So while theoretically the answer is yes, practically setting the expectations correct in the very beginning is the most important thing one needs to take care of. I think this was the last question we had.
Yes, sir. Those were the questions.
Yeah, I think there are not much of questions. So if you want to say anything to the student members, you can conclude, give a concluding remarks.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So yeah, I think to summarize, I am actually a wealth management enthusiast. So I find myself always very excited when it comes to wealth management. I do it for my passion actually. I could have also, become a statutory auditor, but I chose to go a different way. I don't find too many colleagues from the CA fraternity in this profession, but of course I've now started finding them gradually, more and more coming in. So I will just conclude this by saying that a lot of opportunities actually exist in capital markets for chartered accountants. It's a less explored domain for chartered accountants, but the skill set which we bring in with our understanding of different subjects which we study rigorously over the period of our education adds a lot of value to this profession and capital markets when people come in. All of you, or most of you who are willing to look forward to opportunities in this market, should definitely explore. I have shared my email ID with the team. Feel free to connect with me either through email or on LinkedIn over a personal message. I'll be happy to answer any questions. All helps which anybody would need, if available to me, I'll certainly be happy to extend that. My best wishes to everybody for a very, very prosperous career. I think the very good part is we are sitting here today because we have all seen the worst of the last century, which is COVID, and we have all sailed through it. So with this, of course, we have all emerged stronger. We should look forward to very, very glorious careers for ourselves as chartered accountants, represent the profession in the best of the capacities we can. I think we are all, because what Institute has built over the last so many decades of being present and representing one of the most respected professions in the country. Any questions on capital markets, happy to answer at all points in time. Once again, my best wishes and my deepest thanks to everybody from the SIRC team, particularly Mr. Suresh Kumar, who introduced me very, very humbly and gently. Thank you so much, sir, for introducing me so well, and also giving me this opportunity to answer all the questions and represent the council on behalf of yourselves. I always look forward to more such interactions. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks, Shailesh ji. I take this opportunity to thank on behalf of the SIRC for sparing means in your busy hours for the member fraternity to give detailed knowledge about the opportunities available. I'm sure the young members will certainly explore whatever the areas you had given, like, so they will look into the possible practice opportunity and at the same time employment opportunity in any of these areas. As you rightly said, as a practicing member, there are opportunities like due diligence, valuation, and so many things which they can add it as an additional value-adding products in their practice portfolio. So this kind of sessions, when the experts from the industry share with the members, they get new perspective of what are all the opportunities available in the market. And I will be extremely thankful to you for sparing the time for the benefit of our members. Thanks a lot for on behalf of SIRC for your thanks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks to everybody for logging in as well and joining us. Thank you so much.